You're listening to the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt, where we talk about hunting, shooting, fishing, camping, and everything else that the great outdoors has to offer. Let's get into it. Troy is back. Now, I don't know how to introduce you, if it's Troy from Honker Hunters or Troy from Sambar Hunters, mate. Oh. You've been knocking, you've mixed it up, and mate, you're doing all right. Well, I watched that video. I know it's probably 2 months old now, but I've watched it a couple of times just to refresh before we had this chat. Good little spiker.
Oh, I was going to say, take it easy. No, I've been chasing the different honk, which has been good, but it's certainly been interesting. I've managed to actually keep upgrading on every trip. So I've been fortunate enough to just keep getting a little bit bigger in the spikers to actually having a decent set of antlers on the last trip. So it's been interesting, but we can get into a bit of a story of the last trip anyway. So,
mate, I'm really jealous of Victoria in the sense that there's no bookings and you can just get out onto public land so quickly. It just seems like such a perfect system compared to New South Wales, being limited to how many hunters, being limited to having to book, and forests get booked out, especially if they're good ones or they're not even close. So I am a little envious of you guys down south. How close is the nearest public land for you to go and chase sambar?
It would be an hour and a half.
Which is pretty good, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So that's it's very rare, that you might see a sambar there. I've been told that they're there. But the closest public would be mainly Fellow, which is down the Otways. So that's probably an hour and a half. For the blokes coming from Melbourne, which is down south, if they want to hunt the Otways, they're probably looking at 2 hours or 2.5 hours drive. But the Otways is hard. It's thick, and you need to do a lot of homework. And, if you can't find that little bit of clearing, there are a lot of deer in the Otways down south, but you just can't get to them. Yeah, so unless you've got that little bit of clearing, you've done your homework, and I've spent hours in there just like bashing through trying to find a bit of clearing where you can actually get a good view, and you still can't get it. It's
That's one I noticed with a couple of state forests I hunt, that your visibility might be 3 meters at best, 5 meters, and you might have that for kilometers.
That's exactly what it's like.
It's tough going, and obviously the advantage is with the deer. So it's that tricky sort of side of it, as you said. You want to be able to find that clearing or somewhere to be able to see. I find not all of it is huntable, because if you can't see, you can't really do much. Like it's about trying to find that little area, that little pocket that you can have a bit of visibility that the deer are going to be there, because half the time you're looking for deer and they might not be where you think they're going to be either. I was taught that by a mate. So it's really interesting when you talk about the fact that it's got a lot of deer in the area, but the actual locality makes it difficult to get them.
Yeah, that's right, for sure. Yeah. And then if you look at the other aspect of, there is a lot of, trails, there's good game trails, there's, droppings absolutely everywhere, but you just, as you say, you'll push through and go, and you've done your homework, you've looked at Google Earth and that looks like a clearing, but when you get in there, it's overgrown. I'll just keep pushing through. No, it's overgrown, and you just constantly. And so anyway, after numerous trips, we've finally found a little bit of clearing, and we've been getting a couple of fellow down there, but it's been hard going.
Mate, look, you're doing better than I am, so I mean that's a win. But how do you find it compared to duck hunting? Because I know you're such a passionate duck hunter. How is it? Just you're starting to love all different types of hunting? Is it something you're going, geez, this is really exciting? There's a bigger payoff when you do finally get one. What's the thought process between both?
Yeah, well, it is a bigger payoff when you do finally get a deer, because I suppose even look at the last video I did. Well, we'll take duck season. If you go right back to the start of this year when we got 4 birds. So, of course, 4 birds, if you get 4 tiny little teal, well, that's going to not even feed me in a little burger or whatever, a schnitzel sanger. If you put 3 hours in, you could get to that fringe country, say up in the high country. It's not where I go. I spend another hour and a half, so I'm in the car for 4.5 hours to get to where I want to. But as you said, the rewards are a lot better. But in saying that, the challenge comes into the deer hunting, which I'm really loving. Like that last trip I did, I learnt probably how far away they can smell you. Like just bang.
It's a bloody long way, isn't it?
Oh, we couldn't believe it. Absolutely couldn't believe it. And just we're sitting up the top of this gully and we noticed 3 hinds come out. And I've got a new bloke with me. He'd never been deer hunting. And I said, we're okay sitting up here because the wind was coming directly at our backs but going straight down this gully. And I said, they'll come along this bottom creek bed and we could see them coming. They were on that sort of 45-degree mark. I said, you're going to have to take a shot before they get right below us. I said, because they'll smell us. And I said, they'll probably honk at us or do something. And smack bang, as soon as that first hind come through and she was level with us, we watched her and I'm watching her through the scope. And he goes, have you got a shot? And I said, I have. I said, but I'm not going to pull the trigger. I said, I'm only here for you and I just want you to get your first amber. And she put her nose up in the air as I'm looking at her through the scope and she went, honk. And that was it, game over. And we were 350 metres up on top of this, up above them on this gully, on this little ridge. And then bang, she honked and all of them just turned around and went bang, straight back in the creek. And up they went. And I'm like, my God. So it's that challenge and you're like, if we had been down earlier and prepped ourselves, they would have walked straight into us, or you just don't know, and it's like those mountain ducks, as you said, I'm a passionate hunter and that they come down to a challenge because they could be feeding in the one spot, but then you go there a week later because you don't have the time off work to go there every day and watch what part of the paddock they're chewing out and all that sort of stuff. So you find that a challenge, you might rock up and all the birds are landing down the other end of the paddock. And then you've got to try and call them to you. So that becomes the challenge. But the sambar hunting is a whole different ballgame, and it's like that. And as you say, the rewards are so much better. Feed-wise, family-wise, crumb schnitzel, steaks, back straps, bloody sensational.
I say it all the time. I love hunting. And even if it's not successful, it's such a challenge, but it's so rewarding. I learn something every time I'm out in the bush and it's just thoroughly enjoyable. I've never left to come home and been disappointed. I've always left going, I had such a great time. And they're not successful hunts, but that's if you judge a hunt by getting a deer. I think that I've mentioned Fred Bear's quote before, that it's one of those things for me. It's so rewarding and fun just being out in the bush and putting you to the test against these amazing animals. And as you said, their senses are just next level. I just cannot express how much, people must have been amazing to hunt back in the day without the technology and without the rifles and the scopes that we've got now. Man, it's impressive to think what our ancestors did and how they survived, tracking and chasing these animals, because they're bloody brilliant. That's all I can say. It's just there's so much respect for them as a prey animal. They are, I think people miss that about hunters, that they don't understand how much we think these animals are amazing.
Yeah, I mean, some blokes can walk in the bush and get that great stag, but do they fully understand what an achievement it is? Because these big stags don't get big for no reason. You look back at the history of them, they're being used to being hunted by tigers and all that sort of stuff, and they've got scent glands in the back of their legs and stuff like that. So you rub your scent as you're walking through on those low-lying ferns. As he comes back through, he smells that, and that's it, game over, you're out. So it's just great. It's just that challenge that you look forward to. But I've gone through the stages with the friends when I first started going, and I was happy just to come along. And then I went to the next stage where I was happy to get honked at. And I got honked, and then it just kept going from there. I was happy with that. And I still don't. I can go up and, as you say, not pull the trigger. I just love being out, and it's great, especially where we're going now. Like I've found certain areas where it's holding wild dogs. The last gully we had pigs in it, and I put that on camera. The big pig come out and things like that. So you sort of go, do I want to actually get a pig on the public land, or I just want to ruin that whole gully? And so that was a bit of a toss up because I've never got a pig on the public land yet. So I'm like, well, do or don't I? And I left that, and I was lucky I did because I kept pushing up, and ended up getting the spiker out of that. So.
It's funny, isn't it? It's one of the ones, and I suppose it's a hard one because I feel that we talked about the National Feral Deer Action Plan. We've talked about the new goat abatement plan. There's a feral goat abatement plan that's just come out and is seeking consultation open till February. And I'm going to do a podcast breaking that down because it's very similar to the deer plan. There's a lot of poison issues and things like that. And that's one of the things. There was two things in there that I've sort of looked at in the latest feral deer action plan. And they talk about hunters not being effective for a new reason that wasn't in the first draft. It was after submission of feedback. And that was that we won't be able to shoot enough because we're taking meat off the animal. And I know it's been used before saying, well, you're not out there, as you said, I didn't want to shoot the pig. I was in two minds because I'm there to chase deer. And sometimes I feel that might be held against us. But at the end of the day, you're spending a lot of time, money, and effort to go out there to chase deer. I think you're well within your rights to do that. So I'm not having a go at you by any stretch of the imagination. It's just a really tricky situation because I do feel that is something that they could hold against us. And I mean, if you look at the feral deer plan at the moment, it is clearly in there saying that, we waste time taking meat off an animal where we could be shooting other animals. Now, I would think that's a good thing, that the animal's not rotting, wasting, turning into food for other feral animals such as pigs and wild dogs and foxes and you name it. So, yeah, it's a really tricky one, isn't it? Like just how you've gone through it with the ducks at the moment and what's going on down there in Vic. It's been all over the place. And, it's really interesting times in Australia at the moment as for hunters in the sort of wider community and what's sort of being implemented. And I do have grave concerns.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt, I'm exactly the same. It's across all aspects of hunting as well.
So I'll break the goat plan down later, but the one big one for me, poison's in there again. And I posted today on social media because it references the poison aggregator that they're using for deer and saying, oh, yep, we can use it for goats. It's already been trialled and tested and engineered and blah, blah, blah. It's ready for manufacturing. And I just went, oh, man, this isn't great. And I know the feral deer plan didn't talk about what types of poison. I think they did that specifically and a little bit sneakily, to be honest, because I think they knew that they're probably going to get a lot more submissions and kickback from hunters and the like, as opposed to the goat side of things, because I do feel that people chase deer more than they chase goats, especially from all sides of it, meat, trophy, you name it. And that was one. So they've actually referring to the poison in there being 1080. And that sort of, a lot of people said we don't know what type of poison they want when I spoke about it the first time. And this is saying, well, it's linking all back to the deer plan. And this time they've actually mentioned that it's going to be 1080 to take goats out. And I just sit there and I shake my head because, if they're talking about this for goats, which is a massive economic contributor with what we call rangeland goats and selling them, oh my God, I think this is a big problem that we need to look at. It seems to be just rolling out, whether it be, shotgun shooting of deer down in South Australia, whether it be the duck season. It's funny. I know I sent it to you tonight, the stats coming out of GMA, which, I don't know whether they're boasting about those things, even though it was such a shortened duck season. I am a little confused.
I'm not confused. I'm not confused at all about it. I'm very skeptical about the whole thing.
There's a lot of ducks taken.
It's a lot of ducks taken in that short amount of time. And the thing that gets me is too, they base the results on only a certain amount of phone calls. Like they even said in their release that it was 21,900 people, licensed duck hunters, that actually were registered this year. Okay, but of that, I'm on the belief that they only phoned 200. Okay, so if what I'm hearing is that they'll just keep ringing people until they get a tally of 200 people. So if I don't answer the phone, they'll just keep ringing whoever it is, and they'll keep going until they get. I don't know the 200. This is what I've heard over the years. They just call 200. I don't know if that's accurate or not. That's what I've only heard. But of that 200 people, that's what they're basing that data on, and they get the feedback and all that sort of stuff. But I'm skeptical because just say I'm a beginner hunter and I go, oh, gee, mate, are ringing me. Gee, I better tell them I've hunted every day and I've bagged out every day, because that means I've been out every day and I've shot ducks every day, so then they'll give me a season next year because I'm excited and I've shot every day and I've shot all the ducks. So is he telling the truth, or did he just go out for opening? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
Ugh. So has 199 duck hunters done that because they think they've got to lie to the GMA to actually get next season and the season after? They've got to make it sound like they've been out every day and they've done this and they've done that. How much money did you spend? Oh, I spent heaps because I brought a duck punt and I spent X amount and I visited X amount of towns. So, but are they actually telling the truth?
Well, that's where it gets tricky, isn't it? Because they're saying, 22 ducks were on average an active duck hunter, and they're saying that 65% of licenses were actively hunted, and they're saying they did 7.1 days and took 22 ducks, which is funny because then they're saying the estimates are 319,900 ducks taken. Which
is on the basis of every year. It averages out to a normal year.
That's exactly right. So shooters did very well this year compared to normal with such a shortened season. And then on top of that, I also sit there and go, hold on, but wasn't the issue of a shortened season because there wasn't enough ducks around? Or something doesn't add up. Whichever way you want to look at this, Correct. There is an issue here, isn't there? There is either a heap of ducks and you're stuffed up in the first place with a shorter season, or that your statistics are out, or I don't know. It's just all over the place in my opinion.
I don't know whether you call it a catch-22 or not, but a shortened season, all that does is create a lot more hunting pressure. So if you've got a normal 12-week season or whatever it is, and blokes go, oh, I can't come out this weekend, that's all right, I'll go next weekend, it's all good. But you give a duck hunter 4 weeks, every opportunity you get, he's not going to be with his family, he's not going to be with the dog, he's just going to go. I'm going to finish work and go. So those wetlands and things like that, they just get pounded, and it adds a lot of hunting pressure. But statistically wise, I don't know. There was a couple of comments, if you have a look at the websites, that blokes who are mathematical geniuses, they've actually just gone, hang on a minute, something doesn't add up. So, and if you read through a few of the comments, they've listed numbers and percentages, and they've done all their cross the I's and done all that sort of stuff, and they're like, hang on a minute, something doesn't add up there. So I'm not sure. As I said, I'm skeptical.
I just don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me with the numbers or what they're saying, because if the ducks weren't there, but we've got a shorter season and people were able to get them. And then I know what you're saying about hunting pressure, but for me, if it's a shortened season, I feel that there'd be more hunting pressure in a shorter amount of time. So we know with any species, the higher the hunting pressure, the less likely they are to be around or show themselves and smarten up to it. So it's one of those things for me. I'm sitting there going, I don't know about all this. It doesn't sit right with me, these statistics and how they are being portrayed. I'll do the math on it because it's not really difficult math. Like we can work it out. 21,900 licenses, 65% of that, times that by 22.7 ducks. That's pretty easy to do. So we'll check it out, or we can do it now. Actually, Okay, so if we do the math here and we look at what they're saying. So they're saying we've got 21,900 licensed duck hunters, 65% actively hunted. So active duck hunters harvested an estimated 22.7. So if you go to 65% of 21,900 and times that by 22.7, we're talking 323,000 ducks just on the back of that. Now they're saying we took 319,900.
Yep.
Well, look, I am no mathematician, but I mean, that's not hard math, and that doesn't add up straight away. I don't know. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting.
Yeah, as a few of the comments have actually said, like, yeah, the figures don't add up.
Not at all.
Yeah. So who's doing that mathematical part of it and these posts and all that sort of stuff? And yeah, I don't know.
Well, probably the same person that maybe counted the ducks and said there's not enough out there because it's a bit off, isn't
it? Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Although they are, yeah, I don't know. They still relying heavily on the East Australian Waterbird Survey, the whole lot, but they are contributing a lot more than they were in the past with their helicopter survey and all that sort of stuff. So it's beneficial, along with the bird counts and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully this year, because last year we had the floods and all that sort of stuff, so they did have trouble getting the helicopter up due to bad weather. So hopefully this year it's going to be a lot better. But in saying that, like I was out, we had Matt and I had a conversation off air. I was meant to go snapper fishing down here today, and it didn't eventuate because it was blowing its ass off, literally. So, which was fortunate enough. I had a phone call from a farmer, and he said he was in all sorts of trouble because he had mountain ducks chewing on the bean crop. So I said, well, I've got this afternoon off, so I went out and had a look at that. And they were. I've taken videos of that and all that sort of stuff. And there was 2,000 birds coming in around the farm. Black ducks, mountain ducks, a whole lot. So getting to the point was, even though GMA are doing helicopter surveys, they're flying transects and all that sort of stuff across Victoria and whatever, organisations could do bird counts as well. But they're still not going to hit all the private properties and the dams and floodwaters and low-lying waters that are across Victoria. You know, like I was at this farm today and you wouldn't have known where the birds were coming from. I had to drive another 2-3 kilometres after I visited the farm to see where they were coming from. And there is a major lake and they're coming off that and just hanging 50 to 100 metres across low paddocks and just hugging it and then popping up over the trees into the farmer's bean crop. And then on the way out, they were having a feed and then heading in a different direction and stuff like that. So I did a lot of kilometres trying to find out where they were coming from and then went back to the farm. And, you know, that's, if a helicopter's flying over and doesn't see that on that wetland, of course they're not going to see it because there's already 2,000 birds in the farmer's crop. And that's just one farm. So you can imagine how many bean crops there are in Western Victoria. And mountain ducks, black ducks love it. You know, wood ducks are chewing out from the dam. So they're still missing a lot of data that could be added to all these statistics and things like that.
And I think that's the key. It's an estimation. So
that's
they're
right.
getting a snapshot and then running some sort of formula to then get a figure and that it's not 100% accurate and they could be well and truly out or they could be well and truly accurate. That's the problem with it, is that you're running a bit of a guessing game because there is no way we can possibly catch every single duck in Victoria when we're surveying. Like they obviously, that's literally impossible. So I do understand where they're coming from. They got a really hard task to try and get it right. But yeah, as you said, there's so many issues with how it is probably done because they are up against it. So I'm not bagging out GMA or the aerial surveys. It's just it's a tough way to go and be accurate. That's just the reality behind it.
And they can only recommend what they see. You know, they're doing the helicopter surveys, they're doing this, they're doing that. They can only go by what they're doing, as well as, say, if I'm doing a recommendation for Honker Hunters as well. I'm only going around to all the private properties I know across Western Victoria, and I do make a hell of a lot of calls to all the farmers, and then I ask neighbours and the whole lot based on mountain ducks, crops, wood ducks and blackies and all that sort of stuff. And I do visit all the wetlands as I go. So they're only basing everything off the information they've got. So you've got to give them credit because they are sort of doing it as well as what we're doing. But as for accuracy and things like that, it's So it's I don't know. It's the same as the wounding rates and things like that. There's a lot of questions to be asked, and some of the answers that are coming out are just not, in my view, they're just not correct.
Well, I think that was really well touched on by Denny Ryan when he was on, talking about the amount of activists at the wetlands, that if those ducks and that wounding rate was like what it is, they would be all over it and they'd have a lot of wounded birds. And it's just not the case. So that, I mean, it's a really tricky one when you start to look at data and start to unpack some of those things too. So, mate, have you got up here to New South Wales for a bit of a, some control on some of the rice farms and things like that lately?
Yeah, so I did a trip about 2 weeks ago. When was that? So it would have been about 2 weeks ago, actually. I was up in probably over the border for about an hour and a half. So up near the Blighty area, then we travelled across to Pretty Pine and then a little bit further up to Mullameen. So we found a farm that I know up about halfway between Pretty Pine and Mullameen that was having a bit of trouble. And, we ended up having a bit of a shoot there. So I think there was 5 or 6 of us that went up. What we did find is the farm that we went to had been shot at only a couple of days prior to when we got there. So the farmer had a massive issue. A lot of them are having a big issue. I've spoken to a few boys that have been up, and there's a fair few farmers that are having to re-sow certain rice bays because they're getting pounded. And when you estimate, like one farmer told me he's going to have to spend another $15,000 to re-sow. So I'm pretty sure that'll make a massive dent in his budget at the end of the year. And then there was 2 or 3 other farms that I've spoken to in the Mullameen area and across to Wakul that are getting heavily pounded as well, and they're having to re-sow. So it's 4 or 5 farmers that I've heard have had to re-sow. But we had a good trip. We got a few birds, which was great. Not a lot, but we got a few birds. Everyone got to take some home, so it was good.
Well, that's what it's about, taking home some meat to feed the family. So
chance to get away, and the birds are a bonus. What we did find is they were coming in really late, though, really late, like midnight late, which was hard. So I normally go out in the rice bays early, so I'm normally out there at sort of 4:30. And then I find that you get the early blackies, so you got your decoys out and things like that. For some reason, I've done it over the years. You'll get your early black ducks come in and the odd teal and things like that. And then as the night progresses, you'll start to get your wood ducks later and things like that. But for some reason, we got a few early blackies. There was a massive lull between 5:30 and about 8, where you'd pick off 1 or 2 birds, and then it got dark and we're running a full moon. And then when it switched across to 10:30, there was just shadows piling into the rice bays. Yeah, so they're all coming in after dark. And I don't know whether that was added pressure or the fact that it was a full moon and all the birds were just moving from farm to farm and just demolishing the crops.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so it was pretty big. But that, again, is great to help the farmer out. But to me, I'd rather it be during the day, instead of trying to use a spotlight to sort of help the farmer out. It's more challenging for me to actually call the ducks to your bay and into your decoy spread. Yeah,
we spoke about that last time, talking about how just the whole way you go about it with the decoys and calling them in, and it sounds so cool. It's definitely on my list to do, but I can understand that probably with the spotlight, it's never. A lot of people go, spotlight's cheating, but I mean, you're there for a different purpose. So I think that's something that people need to wrap their minds around a little bit better. That yes, okay, you're not hunting. There's different challenges to it, but you're there to help out a farmer, or you're there to get meat, or whatever it might be. I see it on social media all the time. Someone puts up a deer that they shot under thermal or a spotlight, and get this barrage of sort of hate. And it's like, man, they all play a part. Like it's, we've got to be mindful that just because you don't want to hunt that way, that's different. Yes, I get it. And it might be more shooting than hunting, but at the end of the day, it's still needed. Or, we're going to be facing things like poison getting thrown around there because you just want to hunt and you only want to take stags or whatever it might be. Again, hunters really sometimes struggle to look after each other and have each other's backs. So it's a pretty interesting times watching social media. I tend to sit back and just watch what's going on and go, man, it's funny. So I'd say the least.
That's probably one of my faults. I watch to a certain extent, and every now and again I've just got a bite. So that's, yeah. But anyway. Yeah, but it's like I chose that weekend being a full moon too. So you full moon up the rice fields, as you say, like it's hunting, but you've got to remember you are looking after the farmer. It's his livelihood, it's his crops. And if they're coming in he's having to sow those top 3 bays. And he said that's where all the birds are coming in, the whole lot. So when you go there on a full moon, that's probably a good tip for the beginners as well, is you can still see. You'll have a bit of a lull where the moon's just coming up above the trees and stuff. But when, that 11 o'clock hits and things like that, and you've got a good night, that full moon still lights it up and you can actually still see the birds. Yeah, which is really good. So that's basically what we're doing.
Yeah, no, that sounds interesting. The last full moon I was outside going, geez, it's easy to see. There was a lot of light coming off it. So I can imagine that with the rice bays, would it help with the reflection off the water as well? Would that illuminate it a little bit more?
Yeah, it sort of does. And especially if you face that full moon too. So because the birds will come across and they'll still try and find where all their other mates are feeding. So, and if you still got your decoys on the water so those top rice bays that they were still chewing at, he was starting to drain out as well. So I had a few decoys on the stands and they were sort of winging around going, oh, they're still up in those top bays feeding. So I could face the full moon and still see him clearly just coming across. And I positioned myself right in the full moon directly over my decoys. So I could actually see him coming straight into the decoys, good as gold. Yeah, so it definitely helps. Full moon, beautiful.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. Good to know.
Yeah.
Let's get back to Sambar. So I have been hanging to talk to you about your setup because I've mentioned I've got the Weatherby Vanguard in 308 and I'm not super sold on it at the moment. I'm thinking of moving it on, and there's sort of 2 rifles I'm looking at. One being the ticker, because I just love my ticker that I have, and I'm thinking another one would just go nicely. But then there's the rifle you're using at the moment, the Howa Superlight. Tell me about it, mate. Are you rating it? You're liking it? It looks, just the stats alone and the weight really, attract me for walking around with.
It was the Superlight. It's not.
It wasn't?
No. So it's not actually the Superlight, no.
So you just got the standard Howa?
No.
What are you running?
So that's thrown you, hasn't it?
It has indeed. I thought it was the Superlight.
Yeah, so I got the Howa Superlight and it was great. Like you can walk around with it, as you say, and you can go bang and it's great. It's ripping rifle. Like you could backpack, hunt, sambar, no worries. But personally, I've got a crook right shoulder.
Okay.
So when I was going through the whole lot, this is just me and my personal experience. The years of me, because I'm plumber by trade, shovel, I've ruined my shoulders. And then started to get into the deer hunting, had the 3006 before this, and let's get a new rifle. This is great. Let's get the 308 because it's less recoil than the 3006. Let's get the Superlight because it's great. It's bloody, I can pick it up. It's sensational. Wow, smack. Like it was just too much for my Nancy boy shoulder, and I couldn't handle it. I could handle it with 1 or 2 shots, but when you're sitting in the range going, let's sight it in before we go deer hunting, let's do this, let's do that. It was just playing its toll on my shoulder.
So that was one of the big ones for me is when it came out and I was looking at the weight, I sort of went, wow, that would be great for carrying around.
Yeah.
But I think the recoil on such a light rifle in 308 is going to pack a bit of a punch.
Yeah.
Now, as you said, if you're only going to, pull the trigger once or twice, once it's sighted in and you're just going to use for hunting, it's great. But if you are using it a fair bit or you're like yourself and you've got crook shoulders or a bit recoil sensitive, whatever it might be, it's probably not the rifle that you want to be using. And it was interesting because I know that's why they've got the 6.5 Creedmoor, because I think that would be a lot better. But then you can't use it legally to hunt sambar down there because it's too small a cartridge.
Yeah. So that was a decision I had to make. And then the other issue I had was where I go on private property. to the wife's in-laws and things like that, the shots that I take are in excess of 250, 300, up to 400 where I could see them. So it was great to walk through the high country with being so light. It was sensational. And standing up shooting it, brilliant. Like leaning against a tree or the bipod or anything like that, great. Because it's locked in, like you're standing up. It's like a shotgun. You can just go bang. It's cruisy. But the minute I leant forward and sort of got on the gun rest and things like that, and then those longer shots that I was trying to get the confidence, because as you sort of know, I've always been a shotgun shooter, and I've had the 223 and foxes and a lot lighter, but I've never got into the bigger stuff for the sambar and the deer. So to lean forward on it all the time and then take the longer shots, I needed the confidence, and I just wasn't getting it. So, yeah, to cut it short, I just went back and then said, well, what options have I got? So we kept the barrel, and I've dropped that into the HS Precision stock. So I've sacrificed a light stock for heavier stock, but then also it's gone a little bit heavier in the rifle. But, of course, I've sacrificed that because now I've got the confidence to take those longer shots with this rifle.
And obviously you're happy with the stock?
Yeah, it's been sensational. Like, as I said, like, it is a little bit heavier. So when I am walking through up in the high country and things like that, I can notice a difference for sure. But it's no difference in, I've picked other friends' rifles up and things like that. And we even weighed another mate's Hell's Canyon. And there's, I think it was 550 grams difference between mine and his Hell's Canyon.
With the new stock? With
the HS Precision stock. So, yes, I'm got an extra 600 grams, but I'm willing to sacrifice that because now I've got a lot more confidence to take those 300-yard shots and things like that with this rifle, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to, I think, and that's what for me, I keep saying the Weatherby, great rifle, don't get me wrong, spiral fluted, meat eater edition, looks fantastic. The main point that it annoys me is that it's got the floor plate. So when I'm going through state forests and going through exclusion zones or roads, dropping out all the ammo, it's just a pain in the backside, where if you have the magazine, you just drop the magazine out and you're good to go. Yeah. It's just that simple fact of being a little bit nicer to, for the experience when you're out there. And that's the only reason I'm sort of having a look at it going, do I move it on? I do keep talking about it. I haven't done it yet. I haven't pulled the trigger on it. I've just sort of, but, I do like the look of that super light or the ticker. And I'm like, it's really hard to get something that's perfect for everything you want to do.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that's what I had to weigh up. Like that light stalker was sensational, like up in the bush and things like that. Like it'd be great. Like if you were the backpack hunt and all that sort of stuff where you're trying to lighten your load like right down to bare minimum, it would be sensational. And if you are hunting thicker bush and things like that, great. But where I go, I've got a mixture of thick bush and then I've got to wind the scope right back, which is fine. And then I get out to areas where I do have a little bit of open clearings where I could be stretching that barrel up to 200. And that's up in that high country. And then, of course, as I said, I got private property where it's even further. So I just needed the confidence and that, when you pick something up and you go, that's right for me. Yeah, it's the same with all my shotguns and things like that. And as I tell beginners, you can go into the shop and you can have your mind set on this brand new shotgun, but until you pick it up, you are not going to know because you want to pick it up and go, that feels right for me. You want to put it to your shoulder, swing it around and go, yep, that's great. If that's right for you, you'll know as soon as you pick it up and start swinging it. And then, of course, that's going to follow on to your clay target hunting or your duck hunting. And it was the same with me for the rifle. I picked it up and I went, well, what stock options have we got? So I could take the light stalker and the carbon fibre off and then put this on, put that on. And then I weighed up and the HS Precision stock's got the aluminium block and all that sort of stuff in it, and they say that it's a really good stock, and you look into that and go, well, this is going to increase my accuracy and things like that, especially if I've got the trigger lightened as well, which I did. So I've got that lightened down as well, and, yeah, it's sensational now. I can just sit there all day and just go whack, whack, whack at the range.
You mentioned scopes there. I know you're running the Zeiss Z6, I believe. How are
Yep.
you finding that?
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah. I can sit up that high country now and the binos sort of getting, with your low light conditions and things like that. And you're going, oh, I don't know about that. And then you can look through the Zeiss scope and you've still got half an hour of daylight. They're bloody brilliant. Yeah, I can't believe it. Yeah, it's great. And then in the mornings, first thing in the mornings, you can look through that and you can just see those open, clear patches in the morning before your binos can and things like that. So, yeah, I'll have to upgrade my binos soon. That'll be the next sort of big step. And, yeah, but the Zeiss scope's bloody great.
I'm the opposite at the moment. I've got a pretty ordinary scope and it was sort of that juggle, which way do you go? And I'm not regretting it because it's got me in the game and get out there. That's, something I'd rather do. And I tend to err on the side of safety. So I'd rather spend a bit more money on a PLB and my GPS and things like that. And I did take a bit of a shortcut in spending a bit less on that scope. And it is something that, not regretting, but it has impacted me when it's getting those low light conditions. I'll be looking through the binos and I can see, and then I switch to the scope and it's just like, this is crap.
Yeah, right.
So that's going to be on the ever-growing list of equipment that I need to upgrade and get better stuff. And it's all just part of it. But that's something it's good to hear because Zeiss, I want to they're on the list of what scope I'm looking for. So that's definitely one I'll be checking out. And hopefully once I'm ready to go and pull the trigger on a new scope, it'll be probably one of them or one of the other ones up there that are really good quality.
Yeah, and the Zeiss have just come at, they've got all the reticle choices and things like that, and you can go through all of those. And I've just found it to be great. Yeah, and I've had the Leopolds on the other rifles and things like that, the 223 and whatever, and great scope. But as I said, I've gotten into the deer hunting and I've put this on, and it's just really paying off. Like that morning, when was that? That was a few months ago now. We were looking for fallow down at the Otways and come across the clearing. And a mate turned around to me and said, I can see him. And he's got high-quality binos. He could see him in the binos, but he's like you. He was putting the rifle up and then couldn't see it through the rifle. And then I was a complete opposite. I couldn't see him through the binos, but I was actually looking at a long-range shot with the rifle, debating whether I should take it or not. But, we opted to try and sneak up on him and then busted that one, so we didn't get a shot in the end.
I mean, it's part of the whole process, isn't it? Like, I do enjoy getting gear, testing it, seeing if it's good. If I don't like it, selling it. Like, as you said about the shotguns, getting a feel for it. And sometimes it is hard to do that in the shops. And, when you do have to take something out and go, Jess, I like this. No, I don't. And, I'm big on it when I compare the Weatherby to the Ticker. The Ticker is my choice hands down any day of the week. So it is really hard because you don't really get those opportunities as a hunter or shooter where you can just test them out in the field before you get to buy. So it's really good to hear and see other people's experiences with gear and then, sort of go, oh, that's maybe where I'm going to head towards or what I'm not. Let's go into the Sambar. How many have you taken now?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't put a number on it. I'd be over 10.
It's not bad because you've only really, you're pretty new to chasing them.
I am, I'd be over 10. But that's coming from a friend up the road who's given me a lot of knowledge and taught me well, but then also getting off me bum and doing a lot of research myself. He had the Errol Mason Secrets of Sambar, so I borrowed them off him for a while. And then it's just jumping on YouTube and learning different aspects of it from, of course, the guys that do it all the time, like your Paul Bogues and things like that, and Errol Mason contributing, trying to take in every little bit of information you can, like bloody Aussie bush harvest and all things like that. So it's a combination of effort to try and grab every little piece of information. I'm still learning now. Like, as we said, like I've never been honked at that far away. As I said, when another mate was up there with me, it's always been close. You've bumped them and things like that. So taking every bit of information and just trying to use it to your benefit. And it's just been, I think we've had one or two trips where we haven't been successful in taking a deer, but there's always something that's happened when we've gone up. Always something like being honked at, or you've bumped something, or something's going on. But yeah, we seem to be going all right at the minute, which is great.
Sounds like it. I think Errol Mason, that's, if I was going to do a course, like a hunting education course with anyone, Errol Mason would probably be the go-to.
Yep.
He just has such a wealth of knowledge and experience, and, from everything that I see, it's on my list. I've got, this list just keeps growing, but his course is something that I really want to get to. And it is high up on the list, because I think that everyone you speak to, everyone you see that does it, they just rave about how good it is, and that they're taking sambar, especially on public land, almost instantaneously. And, that comes on the back of obviously someone who knows their stuff, but also is a good teacher and being able to get that across. So that's,
sure.
That's great to hear. And as you said, there's some other great people out there like Paul Bogues. I do watch a lot of his stuff and follow him, and, even Zeb and things like that. That's, that's great. That's what you want. Those guys that can do it and do it on public land all the time. That's awesome. That's what you want to be hitting up, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure, without a doubt. And they go down to, I mean, I might call them basics now, but it's I think I did in my last YouTube video, where I knew there was food. I knew, they've got a bed down somewhere and all this sort of stuff. And if you've got the wind right, all those basic things that they teach you, and then you're 80% chance. If you know there's deer in that gully and you know where the feed is, well, straight away they've got to come up in the morning from that feed to bed down. So as long as you work your contours and try and cut them off, or in the afternoon, they're going to be bedded up further in the ferns and all this sort of stuff, or in that thicker area. And if you know where the food is, something's got to come down to eat that food. So you're sort of 80% there. And if you get the wind right, then your chances are going to increase. So they're the basics I've worked on, is your wind and your food. And we've been fortunate enough the last few trips, we're finding what they're feeding on, and you can just see it. So they've just chewed the tops out of these, grass plants, and as they're coming down their game trails, and you can just see what they've been chewing on and where they've been chewing it, and things like that. And then once you find that, it's like finding a jackpot, because something's going to come down to it.
It's that puzzle piece, isn't it? Like getting all the little bits and pieces, all these little tidbits of information, putting the picture together, and then waiting for it to pay off, because you've done all that background, that research, that, time on the ground to put all these things in to give you the best chance. So I always love hearing when people are doing those things, talking about it, and it pays off. And I put my hand up and say, I don't spend enough time in the state forest. I just don't get in there. I tend to do it in school holidays, which that's every 3 months. So I need to spend more time, and hopefully that will occur sooner rather than later. But it's always comforting to hear people, whether they're getting their first deer or getting, a few like you've done, because you're switching it up from the ducks to hunting deer. I love hearing about it, and I love just even the conversation saying, I think about this and this, and I'm watching them eat this. I need to, picture that going in. And that's the beauty of hunting. It's such a challenge, and I wouldn't, like, I definitely don't want to go and pay money to go and shoot a deer. That's just not my thing. No. I'd rather not get one for the next 3 years. That doesn't bother me. Like, I've gone this long. It hasn't, I don't sit there overnight going, I haven't got a deer. Geez, I need to get one tomorrow. I'm going to go pay. It's one of those ones for me. Yes, I'd love the meat, but the actual challenge of doing it is probably higher on the list for me to do it, because I just like hunting. I like being out there. Whether, I shot a rabbit the last time I was in the state forest, because I was like, okay, it's getting to the time when if I pull a trigger on a deer, but there's, I'm getting a short window to get back home. That's cool. I'll shoot a rabbit. Like, it's out there doing a bit of conservation. It's good fun, a little bit of meat, happy days.
Yeah, well, I took a new person up. I think I told you off the air anyway. So I took him up on my last sambar hunt, and I shot me PB sambar, which got me some nice antlers. And then, he hadn't shot one, and we were fortunate enough that those hinds I was talking about earlier, I said, they're going to come back because we knew there was food down the bottom of the gully. So they're going to come back. I said, so let's head down there. So I got my personal best the night before. I said, look, and he watched me shoot that. He was right beside me and great. So he helped me carry that out. So we busted our bums and got all that one out. And then the next day I said, come on, we'll go back in again. So we had a good morning's rest. And as you say, I enjoy the time up there. So it was a nice big feed for lunch and a cook up and all the rest of it. And we kicked back. And then, of course, that afternoon, we just sort of said, let's go again. So I said, well, I reckon those hinds are going to come back through. I said, so let's go down the bottom of that gully and we'll see what happens. So as we're creeping down, the wind swirled again. And we're halfway down. We're like, oh, you're kidding me. What are we going to do now? So I said, it's a bust. And it wasn't going straight down like the previous day or the 2 days prior, whenever it was. It was going down and then swirling. And I said, I know from experience, if you haven't got the wind right, you're up the creek. I said, so let's go somewhere else. Let's move to another one. So we went back down to where I shot the one the night before because we were only about, say, 200 metres off this game trail and working our way down. So we went past where I got the one the night before and then we contoured around and we're about another 200 metres past and we were already past where I shot this one. So we're already past the body and we contoured around down the gully about another 200 metres and I just stopped. And then I'm looking at a brown back and I'm like, have a look at this. So we sort of sat down for a minute and then it disappeared and I couldn't see it. And I said to Russ, they're there. You go ahead, you sit down there and just wait. No worries. So I put him by himself and I said, off you go. Well, he turned around and looked at me and he sort of given me all these hand signals and all the rest of it. And I couldn't figure out what he was talking about. But talking about it later on, he was trying to tell me that there's two hinds walking through and all of a sudden I could see fingers above his head and he was like the old bull when you're a kid and you put two fingers above your head, but he had about five. So I'm like, what's he doing? He was making like these wavy hand signals above his head and to cut it short, he was trying to tell me there's a stag behind the hinds. But then he's actually shrugging his shoulders because he knew that I'd shot one stag, but it was bigger than the one I got. So being a new hunter, he didn't want to shoot that one because he thought, well, I can't shoot a bigger one than Troy. What am I going to do here? So I just gave him the shoot signal. I said, shoot it. Game on here. Like that. So next thing, yeah, bang, he's got that down and he hit it just behind the heart and lungs in the spine, but didn't really drop it on the spot. So off he went. And he went another 150, but dropped, which was good. So we found him, and he was bigger. So he had never been to the high country before. He'd never shot at a sambar, and here he is, and he's just dropped a bigger stag than me on his very first trip the night after I got mine. So it's stories like that you're actually, like I got to witness, which was even better. Like you can't wipe the smile off his face for that whole night. So that was another deer dressed up, like backpacked out and then put in the ute, and we were 2 deer down in 2 days and that was it. We were done. By the time we got that second one out, you could hardly walk and there was a few beers and I think there was a bottle of Woodford's open that night around the campfire as well. And we had a nice sleep in and we were off back to back home by lunch the next day.
I love hearing about it. I love, I was there for, shout out again to Gabby and Sam on Sam getting his first deer. I was there for the whole thing. It was awesome. Just when I hear about that, and even when listeners reach out and they send me the photos that they got their first one and things like that, I love it. I absolutely love it because it's just, it's what we're in it for. I don't know, for me, the trophy side isn't where my mind's at or head's at. It doesn't really bother me. I get why people do it and I've got no issue with it. But for me, I want the meat side of it. And when people are getting it, whether it be a doe, hind, stag, buck, whatever, just hearing or seeing how happy they are. And
for sure.
That's the win. that's why one of the best things about this podcast is when people reach out to say, hey, I got this, because we've been chatting for a while and I'm chasing one too still and I haven't got mine, and then they get it. That's the best. Like it just makes me so excited for them.
Oh, and he was more concerned about what I thought. And I'm like, no, I get more satisfaction because it's you and you've actually shot one. Like that's the reward for me. So don't worry about me. I'm rapt for you. This is great. I said, I'm buggered from the night before and we've got to carry another one out, but we'll be right.
You could have shot the hind more for the to save the legs going up the hill.
Because he doesn't have no gear. Like, so when he come up, I said, just come up, just wear your duck gear. Because he's like me. He's got the last, I think, 3 or 4 years, he's just gotten into the duck hunting as well. And I met him through the clay club and all that sort of stuff. So, he got into the duck hunting and I taught him a few things on that, and then he's just gone, I wouldn't mind this deer hunting. So he come up and he's got a big, the Ridgeline duck jacket. And I said, you're going to be stifling wearing that. So no worries. So I lent him some of the Ridgeline Excape gear that I had. I normally take a couple of tops up because you might sweat and blah, blah, blah. So I gave him the Ridgeline gear. So he's wearing my Excape stuff. And then we go down to the gully. And, of course, I don't have another backpack to give him. So we only had this tiny little, I think it was a Camo one from one of the Kmarts or Target shops. It's just like a little 10-litre backpack to carry his drinks and whatever in. Oh. So I've got my big pack, which was fine to fit a leg and the back straps and all the rest. But it's just seriously, like, helping me the night before, and then just that night, like, he was struggling. Like, he had to, because it got a bit chilly after we were carrying it out. But, yeah, for all those that know, when you've carried one out, you start sweating like a dog. And we got up the top, and I didn't realise he still had the Ridgeline jacket on. So it was like a swimming pool. He was just sweating from head to toe, but still had a grin on his face. He was just loving it, absolutely loving it. So then, I said, we've got to go back down again because I won't shoot him. If I can't get it all out, I won't shoot it. So if it's too far down, I'm not taking a head just for the purpose of it. If I shoot it, I want to take the whole lot out. So, it's just, So down we went again and filled his little backpack. I think we got one front leg in it. And then that was it. I had to carry the rest. And he's carrying the head finally. And, but all the way up, just bloody brilliant. Couldn't shut him up. And then, of course, a few beers later and the Woodfords come out, and then it was great.
I think that's what it's about, isn't it? That joy that hunting brings, and, a successful hunt, if you are lucky enough to get a deer and get meat or whatever you're chasing, or even if you don't. Like, I went out with a mate of mine, Brady, and we had such a great time. He's a brand new hunter, and, just seeing him looking and finding prints, like, we didn't get anything, but we had such a great time just being in the bush, talking about it, and then memories. That's what I really enjoy. That when you're surrounded by good people that you get on really well with, it's great, and you just it's such a funny sort of thing that you're so happy for someone else to be so successful, and that doesn't happen that much in society anymore. I don't feel.
Oh no. You've got territorial people, and you've got people that just go, oh, he's got a bigger one than me. It's like fishing. What spot did you sit at and you've caught a bigger one, and, oh, look out, someone's moving on, my spot. Well, I don't care. It doesn't worry me. It's great that it was one of my good mates now that's actually shot one bigger than me. But as I said before, he was more concerned about what I thought. But it's not all about that. It's the same as hunting, and I'm taking these new beginners out. I get more rewarding. I find it more rewarding if they get a mountain duck, and I can kick back and actually relax. It's great.
So I know you're on the Excape gear because I do too. The Ridgeline Excape, I love the pattern. Oh, geez, it's good gear.
I just find that it blends in great.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. Yeah, and I've had, like, Jared, who I go with, he's running the Hunter's Element backpack and things like that. He's just recently switched to the Morocco stuff. But even him coming back last time, I was standing up against a tree, and he goes, you really blend in. He goes, it's, for where we are and things like that, he goes, that Excape gear is really blending in. So, I'm quite happy with it. And, of course, that goes over to my duck hunting as well. I'm finding that I'm using it for that as well. So, which is that's cool. Where it sort of come from. but it's just fortunate that it's blending in the high
multi-purpose
country as well. Yeah, it's bloody great.
Yeah, well, that's a win. That way, you don't have to spend as much money, and you can be running it for both. That's a good thing.
Yeah. It's been good.
So, fishing, you've been out. Did you go out yesterday?
I did go out yesterday. Yeah.
No good.
This wind has been absolutely terrible. Yeah, down our parts, down south. So, yeah, it just hasn't let up. Hasn't let up at all. Well, I think we've had 1 or 2 days where it's been not too bad, but it's just been 25 to 30k winds nearly every day, blowing up. Yeah, it's been terrible. So, but I've only managed a few fish now that have been. I think the biggest one's been 2.5 kilos so far. Yeah. So,
and you mainly chase snapper?
No, I'll chase anything. Throughout the year, just depends on what's going. But yeah, snapper's great, and especially for the kids. If the pinkies are in, and you're sort of heading towards Christmas and after Christmas, you get the kids in the boat, and the pinkies just hit the rods and they just fold, and that's great. You get the kids involved. You can lighten the drag off so the reel screams a little bit, and they just love it, especially my young bloke. So, but that's been the main aim this year. I want to get him in the boat and have him actually get something, above that 2.5, 3 kilo mark, and give him a little bit more of a workout. So instead of catching banjo sharks and things like that.
That excites me. My eldest is 3, and I just bought him a little ugly stick combo. It's tiny. It's only like I reckon 2.5 foot rod, and mate, he loves it. Just winding it in. He's just out on the driveway, just winding. There's nothing there. I haven't set it up, but he thoroughly enjoys it to the point where I just went out and bought a big surf rod and got a brand new one of those. So I want to get down and start chasing some salmon in the next couple of weeks as well and see what's about. But it's just those experiences with your kids too. Like it's so rewarding. Like I see him and the smile, and he's 3 and I'm saying, do you want to go fishing? And that's all he's talking about it. He loves it.
Yep.
We go down the local and chase some carp here and there, and he doesn't leave the rod in long enough for a fish to the line's not wet enough to get a fish, but he's just the smile on his face. And when you go, and even his teachers come and say, oh, you went fishing on the weekend. And I was like, that's cool. So I know it's made such an impression on him, and he's loving it so much. He's talking about it at his daycare. That's cool.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So Cohen's like he was never really into it, like, hunting and all that sort of stuff. But this year he got his junior permit, so his junior license. So he went and sat the safety course, and we applied for that. And, so back in, I think it was about Easter, so I got him a 22, the Lithgow 22, and we've taken that up to the in-laws and the Rallos, and he's just started to knock off the targets and, really fine-tune that. And then he's only got his first rabbits this year. So, he's starting to love that too, and turn into that boy's boy, is what we call it, where the fishing's coming along and the hunting's coming along and things like that. So that's been really good. So that's why I said I wanted to get him on the bigger snapper, just to have one of those reels sort of scream off and get him under the pump a little bit. Yeah.
They're my favourite memories. Like, we grew up and we'd spend probably every year 3 months down the south coast of New South Wales, and we had a permanent caravan on site down there, and I cherished them because it was so much fun, going fishing and prawning and, getting squid, and it was awesome. And it started with that. And then I got into the spear fishing on the back of that because I had so much fun with that side of it. And it really did set the tone for me wanting to be in the outdoors. And then I got into the camping and the hiking, and it's that, I guess, the catalyst. Fishing is a great one for especially the young ones to get into. Like, I'm not getting my 3-year-old to shoot a rifle.
It's a bit young.
But for, the fact that he's outside, he's having fun, he's learning about something there, you can see it's ingraining in him to, he's getting super excited. That resonates with me because that was my childhood growing up, and I'm sort of super excited that I don't want him to get too old too quick, but I really do, because I can't wait to, share those experiences with him and have fun. And then the other two as well, as they get a little bit older, it's pretty cool. And hearing you just talk about it with your son and him getting his first rabbits, and, that's cool. You're never going to forget that stuff, are you?
No. And then, it's that first, all the boys listening to know too. It's you're trying to set the scope up for him, and like, can you see through it properly? And he's nervous on that very first shot because I'm looking directly at the rabbit. Can you see it? Can you see it? No, can't see it. So he can't find that right eye movement on the scope and things like that. But we've looked at the target 20 million times before that. But it's that, oh crap, I'm going to actually shoot a rabbit. Well, being his first one, well, that was it. What are we going to do now? So what are we going to do with him? You can't just leave him. So it's that whole way I was brought up was we just don't shoot something for the sake of shooting it. So the rabbit was back legs was come down to the whippet when we got back because we're at the relative's place. So back legs went to the whippet and that was his dinner. And then we made chicken nuggets out of the back strap. So they were crumbed and then dropped in the deep fry pan. So we had some nuggets that night. And it was great.
Yeah, ripper. I still, one of my favourite fish is the leather jacket because it's just so easy to skin. The flavour. I think they're a nice, sweet tasting fish.
They are,
but I love the fact that they're easy to just gut and skin. It was what I used to just anytime we'd go fishing and that's what we'd get. Like amongst the others, I'd be trying to grab them very quickly because I just loved grabbing the leather and pulling it off and, just that texture. It was just, It was something about it for me as a young kid that I'd always gravitate to getting them. Once I knew how to do it, I was like, I want the leather jackets. I'll sort all them out. Even when mum and dad went out on the boat and I didn't go out with them, they'd bring them back and I'd be just down the little cleaning area and taking while dad did the boat and I'd be hacking away at the leather jackets. It still sticks with me and I can't wait to sort of teach that stuff to my kids.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Like I've got him on the squid and all that. So it's different times of year. Things are happening down here. So you get your whiting, your pinkies and flatties and that throughout the year. But certain times you get the bigger squid come in, the heads like off Queenscliff and things like that. And you're getting them to 1.5 kilo to 2 kilo, big squid.
Yeah, nice.
And then when he got his first couple up the side of the boat, you try and say, keep the rod down because she's going to squirt that ink. Up it come. Just coated the whole side of the boat. Just straight up over the bimini cover. The bimini cover's still stained now. Can't get it out. But that's what it's all about. Yeah.
We used to do ours on the rocks and man, the amount of times I was, got inked, it was just, it was, but you remember it. It's so much fun. It's, it's just part of that experience. And as you said with your mate, hiking up and he's wearing his the Ridgeline jacket still and he's sweating his arse off. That's something you'll remember. Like it's those things that when I get to the end of my days and I'm sitting there, that's what I want to be reminiscing on is those experiences and joyous memories.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it's not all about like, as we said before, I can go up there and not pull the trigger. It doesn't worry me. But just being up there, that's the best part of it. Doesn't worry me.
So are you going to chase the fallow in next year's rut? You're going to, go out listening for croaks and try and get some?
Yeah, well, that's the main aim, really. I really want a nice fallow. And that's why I've been trying to get down there in the last half of this year, just to try and find a few clearings and things like that where I can. And I've got, I was great to get a set of antlers off a friend at the top of Victoria, and he got them down to me. So I've got something to bang along now and see what comes out. So if I get there, then hopefully I can work them out. And then I've been watching a few YouTube videos on what to do. And some blokes make it look really easy. They get their attention and bang, they just start coming running in like whistling a fox up. But I know blokes that have been down there and they just keep trying and nothing's happening. So we'll see how we go.
Mate, exciting. I'm hanging for it next year. I had such a good time this year that it's sitting there going, I can't wait to get back down there and start chasing some fellow bucks. Do you find we're coming into summer, it's getting warm, a lot of wriggly sticks out and about. I know you're on the Hunters element. I saw the gators. I saw that in your videos.
Yep.
Do you find you slow down on the hunting because of the heats?
No, so we're going up there in another couple of weeks. A mate up the road wants to go. So as the warmer weather kicks in, it just depends on what area we're going to. So like last year, we sort of figured out we stayed a little bit lower. And instead of walking through, what we found that what I'm trying to get to is we weren't walking as much because of the hot temperature and things like that. So we'd actually get in position and just sit there and wait for him to come down. Or you get there early in the morning, wait for him to come back up. If you go early in the morning, then you've got a hell of a less chance of the snakes being out because you're trouncing through in the dark, and then you sit there. If nothing comes up in the morning, you just call it quits. And then in the afternoon, you just sort of work your way down and then just sort of sit there and wait for them to come down. So you're not doing as much walking. Whereas in the winter months, I might sort of contour around and things like that to get into position on a good game trail. I can sort of see that's been working and find some fresh sign and things like that. The added bonus, what we have done is I've gotten right into it because we went and brought tree stands.
Okay.
So we were at the local park basically last Christmas here in Geelong. So I'm in Geelong. It's about an hour from Melbourne below that. And we're in what they call Eastern Gardens. And we were figuring out how to use our tree stand. So here we are, Jared and I putting tree stands up trees in the local gardens, and people are walking past going, what the hell are you guys doing? So here we are. He's got this Viper tree stand. I've got a wider one. I can't remember the name of mine. So here we are. We're bloody 6 metres up at this stage, and I reckon we can go higher. We've got all the safety gear, the harnesses, all that. Let's go higher. So Jared's about another 6 metres beyond that, probably more. And we literally just sat up there for a good hour. And there were people walking below us and playing below us, not looking up. And we were sitting above them in the trees. Yeah, we were bloody pissing ourselves laughing. So we've gotten into that. So we just say in a couple of weeks, we're going to take those up. And if the wind's right and it's really light winds, we'll probably actually get in first thing in the morning and just put them up and just have a really good sit in the morning and then last you till lunchtime. So you're above the snakes. You don't have to worry about anything. You've got light winds. As long as you've got the wind direction right, you can just sit up there and you're laughing. But we haven't hit anything out of them yet.
Yeah, that'd be cool to get one.
We need to christen that, yeah. I really want to christen that. So I want to have that 308 Howa up there. And I'm just hanging to, especially if I can film it too. I can film it from the tree stand and then, actually get the shot. That'd be sensational. Yeah, because I'll have it filmed and then,
I don't know how you film. I keep saying that, having, running them on your own. It's just an added element, but good on you because I do appreciate and like watching your videos. So, mate, on that, where can people find you if they haven't, if they don't follow you already? Where can they find what you're putting out there? Yeah,
so it's Honker Hunters on YouTube. And yes, I do run the Honker Hunters Facebook page too, which is more related to duck hunting. But the YouTube channel, as I said, I've started doing Sambar and all that sort of stuff. And then, of course, I've got a line of apparel as well, which was the Honker Hunters gear for the duck hunters. But then last year, actually, because I was getting into the deer hunting, a mate of mine turned around and said, you should put something out there that the deer hunters could wear as well because I am chasing the honk. And I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty good. So I actually did some beanies with high-vis blaze beanies with chasing the honk on them and the Honker Hunters label. And they just started going nuts. They went AWOL. So I'm like, this is pretty good. So then I've done some blaze orange caps and some neck scarves and things like that. So, yeah, you can actually, whether Matt puts that in the link, just head to the website and you can follow the link and it's Big Cartel and it takes you into all the apparel and things like that. So, yeah, so I've got some deer hunting gear as well going, which is good.
I was going to say the name actually works really well for both, doesn't it? So you've done really well there.
Yeah, it's been bloody great. So, and then they're not going to cancel duck hunting. I'm going to tell everyone that in Victoria. We'll be right. So hopefully it'll continue and then I can keep that line going as well. But, either way, we'll see what happens.
Mate, that's all you can do. It's, do the best you can, put it out there in a good way and hopefully people enjoy what you do and it's a positive thing going forward for hunters. So, mate, really love the fact you've come on again. It's good to catch up and chat to you. Keep doing what you're doing. Congrats on getting into the Sambar and doing really well on it too, mate. So, well done.
Cheers.
Keep pumping out the YouTube stuff because I thoroughly enjoy it. And thanks for coming on.
No worries. All good.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Bye for now. If you have a topic, guest, question, or any gear that you want to hear about on the podcast, shoot us an email, australianhuntingandbeyond@gmail.com. Alternatively, find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All the links are in the show notes. If you haven't already, make sure you give us a review and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.